There was once a boy who always sat alone, quiet, distant, almost invisible. Other kids didn't talk to him. Some laughed at his strange ideas. He spoke of machines that could fly, cars that could think, and someday, building the fastest car the world had ever seen. Everyone thought he was just daydreaming, just another kid with big, impossible dreams. But that boy didn't just dream. He built Bugatti. Born in 1881 in Milan, Italy, Ettore Bugatti was surrounded by art, not engines. His father was a famous furniture and jewelry designer. In a house full of sketches, sculptures, and delicate craftsmanship, young Ettore was expected to become an artist too. But while others drew flowers and angels, he sketched engines. Not just engines, beautiful engines. As a teenager, he began building bicycles and tinkering with motors in his backyard. It wasn't long before those backyard experiments turned into full-blown engineering marvels. At just 17, Ettore joined Prinetti in Stucchi, a small Italian company that made tricycles with tiny engines attached. Most teenagers were learning how to ride. Ettore, he was learning how to build. By 20, he built his first real car, the Type 1. It wasn't fast, it wasn't sleek, but it was his. He'd poured every hour, every drawing, every bolt of passion into it. No one was watching him yet. He had no factory, no money, no reputation. Just an obsession with speed and elegance. And the belief that machines could be more than metal. They could be art. This is not just the story of a car. This is the story of a dreamer who changed how the world sees speed forever. By the early 1900s, the world was racing into the age of machines. Steam engines roared, factories smoked, and cars were beginning to replace carriages. But for Ettore Bugatti, cars weren't just about moving people, they were about moving souls. He didn't want to build just another automobile. He wanted to craft rolling masterpieces that were fast, flawless, and unlike anything the world had ever seen. After gaining experience working with major manufacturers in France and Germany, Ettore took a bold step. In 1909, he moved to a small town in Alsace, Molsheim, a quiet place surrounded by vineyards and hills, and opened his own factory. It wasn't much, just a few workers, simple tools, and endless ambition. But it was here that automobiles Bugatti was born. His first true creation under the Bugatti name was the Type 13, light, nimble, and fast. It looked almost fragile compared to the bulky cars of the time, but Ettore believed in simplicity and precision. While others added horsepower, he reduced weight. While others used brute force, he focused on balance and grace. Then, in 1911, something remarkable happened at the French Grand Prix, one of the toughest and most prestigious races of its time. The tiny Bugatti Type 13 shocked the world by finishing second. It beat cars from massive factories with huge budgets and elite drivers. Suddenly, the world turned its head. Who was this man, this artist engineer from Molsheim? And what was this elegant little machine that danced around corners and flew past giants? Bugatti wasn't just making cars, he was rewriting the rules. The 1920s roared in with jazz, art, and speed. And no car defined that era like the Bugatti Type 35. It was just a race car. It was a revolution on wheels, with its sleek, torpedo-shaped body, signature horseshoe grille, and a 2.0-liter straight-eight engine. The Type 35 was the embodiment of Ettore's vision, elegance fused with engineering. But here's what made it legendary. It didn't just look good, it won over 1,000 races in its lifetime. From the twisting roads of the Targa Florio to the brutal circuits of Grand Prix Europe, the Type 35 dominated. It was light, beautifully balanced, and so precisely built that even the wheels were cast with hollow spokes to reduce weight. At a time when racing cars were still crude, raw beasts, the Bugatti Type 35 glided like a symphony on asphalt. Drivers felt like they weren't fighting the machine, they were dancing with it. And yet, Ettore didn't stop. He once said, "Perfection is not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away." His workshop was like an artist's studio, with craftsmen tuning engines like violins, painting parts by hand, and polishing every curve until it gleamed. Every Bugatti wasn't just a car, it was a sculpture that moved. But Ettore wasn't just chasing trophies, he was chasing something bigger, immortality through design. And with the Type 35, he found it. In the early 1930s, while the world was sinking into the Great Depression, Ettore Bugatti dreamed bigger than ever. Most automakers were scaling down. But not Bugatti. He wanted to build a car so grand, so powerful, and so luxurious that it wouldn't just carry kings, it would intimidate them. That dream became the Bugatti Type 41, better known as La Royale. This wasn't just a car, it was an empire on wheels, nearly 21 feet long, weighing over 7,000 pounds. Powered by a massive 12.7-liter inline-8 engine, originally designed for aircraft. La Royale didn't purr. It rumbled like thunder wrapped in velvet. The grille alone stood taller than most men's chests, and the details were pure Bugatti, hand-polished metals, custom coachwork, and interiors that rivaled royal drawing rooms. Ettore envisioned La Royale as the vehicle of emperors and heads of state. He planned to make 25 of them, but fate had other ideas. The world economy collapsed. Even royalty wasn't buying. In the end, only 6 Royales were ever built, and none were sold to kings. But each one became a legend. Collectors today consider them priceless. And just one of those massive engines was later repurposed to power French high-speed trains. It was a bold, almost arrogant idea in a time of struggle. But that's who Ettore was, a man who never compromised beauty for practicality. Even in failure, he built things so powerful and poetic, they left the world breathless. World War II was on the horizon, and with it came disruption, occupation, and heartbreak. Ettore Bugatti, once a celebrated figure in France, found himself caught in the chaos. The Molsheim factory, his sanctuary of craftsmanship, was seized by German forces during the occupation of France. Production came to a standstill. The hum of engines was replaced by silence. Bugatti, the name that once roared across racetracks, was now frozen in time. But the greatest blow was personal. Ettore's son, Chiron Bugatti, had become his heir in every sense. A brilliant designer in his own right, Chiron was the mind behind the breathtaking Type 57 SC Atlantic. A car so rare, Chiron had vision, discipline, and the same fire his father had carried all those years ago. Then, in 1939, tragedy struck. Chiron was testing one of his own creations near the factory when he lost control and crashed. He died instantly. He was just 30 years old. Ettore was never the same again. The war had taken his factory. Fate had taken his son. The spirit that had once dreamed up machines of wonder now carried the weight of sorrow. By the time the war ended, the world had changed. The age of artful cars had given way to mass production. Ettore Bugatti, the dreamer who once built royalty on wheels, passed away in 1947, his legacy hanging in the balance. Was this the end of Bugatti? After Ettore Bugatti's death in 1947, it seemed like the magic had died with him. The factory in Molsheim, once alive with innovation and elegance, now stood quiet. The hum of engines, the sparkle of hand-polished chrome, all gone. For years, the Bugatti name became little more than a whisper among collectors and historians, a relic of a golden age that no longer existed. The post-war world was different. Speed meant utility. Cars were being built faster, cheaper, and in larger numbers. Mass production was king, and Bugatti, a brand built on artistry and obsession, couldn't survive in that world. A few attempts were made to revive the name in the 1950s, but none could recapture the soul that Ettore and Chiron had poured into their machines. Bugatti drifted into obscurity. Collectors guarded the remaining Bugattis like sacred treasures. The Type 35s and Royales were locked away in museums or private garages, admired like rare paintings. Every so often, one would appear at an auction and fetch a staggering price, not just because of what it was, but because of what it meant. But for most of the world, Bugatti was forgotten, just another chapter in a dusty book of automotive history. Then, decades later, in an era of digital speed and carbon fiber, something extraordinary happened. Someone looked at the past and saw a future. In the late 1990s, an unexpected name entered the story: Volkswagen. The German auto giant, known more for practical cars like the Golf and Passat, stunned the world when it announced it was acquiring the rights to the Bugatti brand. Most people scratched their heads. Why bring back a forgotten luxury mark from the early 20th century? But Volkswagen had a bold vision. Not just to revive Bugatti, but to make it mythic again. And so, in the shadows of Ettore's old dreams, a new dream was born. VW engineers were tasked with building the most powerful, most luxurious, most mind-blowingly fast production car in history. No compromises, It wasn't about mass production or market trends. It was about doing the impossible. For years, rumors swirled. Prototypes were teased. Skeptics rolled their eyes. But behind closed doors, something monstrous and magnificent was taking shape. That car would be called the Bugatti Veyron. It took nearly a decade of development, an open checkbook, and constant engineering heartbreaks. But Volkswagen did it. In 2005, the world finally saw the rebirth of Bugatti, and it didn't tiptoe into the spotlight. It blew the doors off it. The Veyron wasn't just a car, it was a statement. 1,001 horsepower, a top speed of over 250 miles per hour. A price tag north of $1 million. It was excessive, it was insane. It was Bugatti, reborn. The Bugatti Veyron 16.4 didn't just break records, it shattered expectations. No one had ever built a production car with 4 turbochargers, 16 cylinders, and over 1,000 horsepower. It was more than a hypercar. It was a physics-defying masterpiece that could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 2.5 seconds, and keep climbing all the way to 253 miles per hour. But here's the real miracle. The Veyron wasn't wild and unhinged. It was refined, smooth, quiet, even. A car that could cruise through a European village like a limousine, then tear down an autobahn like a jet fighter. The inside was pure luxury, hand-stitched leather, custom controls, and attention to detail worthy of Ettore himself. People laughed when Volkswagen first announced the project. By 2005, no one was laughing anymore. The Veyron wasn't just the fastest car in the world. It was a return to Bugatti's soul, a fusion of artistry, elegance, and engineering that hadn't been seen in nearly a century. And then Bugatti did something even crazier. In 2010, they released the Veyron Super Sport, boosting the top speed to a staggering 267 miles per hour. Setting a new world record for the fastest production car on Earth, the legacy that had once been buried was now roaring louder than ever. Bugatti was no longer just a historic badge. It was once again the pinnacle of automotive greatness. As the world caught its breath from the Veyron's reign, Bugatti was already working on something even more audacious. In 2016, the curtain was pulled back on the next chapter. The Bugatti Chiron, named after Louis Chiron, one of Bugatti's most successful racing drivers, this wasn't just an upgrade. It was an evolution, sleeker, more aggressive, and even more advanced. The Chiron looked like it had been sculpted by speed itself. Its design was unmistakably Bugatti. The iconic horseshoe grille, the bold centerline running down its spine, the signature C-shaped curve along the sides. Underneath that sculpted exterior roared a 1,479 horsepower W16 engine. That's right, nearly 1,500 horses. The Chiron could launch from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 2.4 seconds and reach an electronically limited top speed of 261 miles per hour. But everyone knew it had more to give, and it did. In 2019, a special version, the Chiron Super Sport 300 Plus, made history. It became the first production car to break the 300 miles per hour barrier, clocking in at 304.77 miles per hour on a closed test track. It wasn't just a speed record, it was a message. Bugatti was still chasing the impossible and catching it. But the Chiron wasn't just about raw numbers. Inside, it was a cathedral of craftsmanship. From its milled aluminum controls to its hand-stitched leather seats, every inch felt like it had been touched by an artist. It was a car that honored Ettore's original vision, that machines could be both ferocious and beautiful. In an era of computers and algorithms, Bugatti was still telling stories through engines and design, and the world was listening. As the 2020s dawned, the automotive world stood at a crossroads. Electric power, autonomous driving, and sustainability were becoming the new standards. But how would a brand like Bugatti, known for roaring engines and handcrafted grandeur, fit into this future? The answer came with both reverence and reinvention. In 2021, Bugatti announced a groundbreaking partnership with Rimac Automobili, the Croatian electric hypercar innovator. The move shocked many, but it made perfect sense. Rimac had mastered electric performance. Bugatti had mastered luxury and legacy. Together, they could shape a new kind of speed, one that didn't sacrifice emotion for electricity. And so Bugatti Rimac was born a new company. with a clear mission: preserve the heart of Bugatti while pushing its soul into the future. The world watched closely. Would the next Bugatti be silent, digital? Could it still make your heart race without the scream of a W16? Bugatti's answer was subtle but powerful. The Bullied, unveiled as a Tricone hypercar, the Bullied was a lightweight monster, stripped down, aggressive alien in its design. It was a glimpse into what Bugatti could be when freed from road regulations and market demands. It wasn't just a concept car, it was a statement. Bugatti was still a laboratory for the extraordinary. Meanwhile, whispers of the next full production model began to circulate. Rumors of a hybrid, of electric torque paired with combustion soul. Of design so radical, it would make even Ettore raise an eyebrow. Bugatti wasn't just surviving in this new age, it was leading it. Once again, over a century after a quiet boy in Milan began sketching engines instead of angels, the name Bugatti still carries weight. Not just because of horsepower, not just because of price tags, but because of what it represents: a refusal to compromise. A belief that machines can stir emotion, that art and engineering are not enemies, but partners. Ettore Bugatti didn't set out to build the most profitable car company. He set out to build the most perfect one that balanced speed with soul, beauty with brutality, and precision with passion. Today, when someone says the word Bugatti, it doesn't just mean fast, it means flawless, it means fearless, it means forever chasing perfection, and that spirit, fragile, rare, and timeless, somehow survived world wars, personal tragedy, economic collapse, and the rise of the digital age. It still tells a story. It still feels like a dream. In a world filled with mass production and soulless innovation, Bugatti still feels like it was built in a workshop, by hands, not machines. So the next time you hear a Bugatti roar past, or watch it blur into the horizon, remember this: it all started with a boy no one believed in. A boy who sat alone, a boy who dreamed, and then built something the world would never forget.